Thank you for your partnership. And I'm sure I'll make mistakes, but you know me. Don't hesitate to correct me when I make it. And I know you won't hesitate. But I really mean it. I really mean it. Well, I tell you what, no one's ever done as much as president as this administration is doing, period. I am committed.
He ought to be committed. But he's not joking. He's not even kidding. Trust in him. He's done more than any president in history not counting, Bong Bong in the Philippines. I think Bong Bong Marcos maybe has done more in the Philippines. Well, happy Thursday unto you, and welcome. I think Thanksgiving was a week ago today, am I right? Have you finished all your leftovers? We still have, we went to the store, we got a big turkey, my best girl and I, for Friday, day after Thanksgiving. Had the butcher at the place saw it in half, and we still have the second half in the freezer. We still got to cook the second half, because we cooked half a big turkey for ourselves last Friday. But I digress, and then, we got down to this and that, and then the turkey noodle soup and all that stuff. 1 week ago today. Well, welcome to America 2022. We got a bit of an update. The luggage thief at the Department of Energy in charge of nuclear waste and all that stuff, who shaves his head, grows a mustache, dresses like Nancy Sinatra from 1966, singing "These Boots Are Made for Walking," and strolls the corridors of power on Capitol Hill on the Department of Energy, nuclear stuff. And turns out that he identifies as he, right? Not they and all that stuff, just dresses like, Jane Fonda. And who else does he dress like? And this guy, and he steals luggage. He occasionally steals nice luggage. What was that? Is it $3,000 or $2,000 luggage? $2,300 luggage, $25, and it's very expensive luggage, costly luggage that most of us wouldn't buy, I think. Nor would he, apparently, because he steals it. But it turns out that I told you about the pictures where he's dressed up with the miniskirt, and he's got three men on all fours, hands and knees, with leashes and dog masks and SM, sadomasochism, bondage discipline. What do they call them? Harnesses. I think they're harnesses, is with the black leather and the studs and things, wearing those on all fours. Turns out that he was presiding over, I'm not sure if it was that instance or another, presiding over a spanking seminar. Do you really need a seminar in spanking? Can't you just figure that out? Jane thinks maybe yes, maybe no. It's hard to say. But a spanking seminar. And he's an official in the Biden administration of the Department of Energy in charge of nuclear waste matters and dog masks, BDSM, harnesses, and spanking seminar. Maybe there should be more spanking in the federal government with all of the falderall and the chaos that emanates from our nation's capital. Perhaps more spanking would be better. Maybe that would be better, because there's a lot that we should be looking at closely that we're really not.
We don't spank.
Enough. That was of course Barack Obama. Has he slowed the rise of the oceans yet? Because to me, he's kind of like a deity, sort of a personal deity.
Did you plug the hole yet, Daddy?
That goes back to the guy with the dog masks and stuff like that. It could anyway. Yes, and a lot to share with you today. Joe Biden, as you were hearing, declared himself apparently, I think, the greatest president ever. Not sure if he's talking about all countries of the planet Earth or just the United States of America. And he was talking to Native American tribes, and as opposed to the other Democrat tribes, because there are a lot of Democrat tribes. And he said he's the greatest president ever. And then he was like hitting on a woman standing there. It seemed like he was hitting on a woman. And with his history of sexual strangeness, showering with his daughter, sexually assaulting Tara Reid, the various other, the sniffing little children, girls, women, all that stuff. A lot of things to talk about there, and talking about this woman who was standing there in ways that men shouldn't talk about women that are standing there. In particular, if there's a microphone there. In particular, if you're president of the United States. In particular, if your wife is also present. But Joe Biden, the rules don't apply because nobody beeps with a Biden. Remember that? Nobody beeps with a Biden. We had to beep it for you. And apparently that's true. The FBI doesn't. The news media doesn't. So who does? Well, the rest of the world does. But we'll get into that. And, the tribal thing, a lot of bizarro Joe Biden moments there. We'll share them with you. Also, another bizarro story because the Democrat hits just keep on coming. 5 cars rented by Joe Biden's Secret Service burst into flames. Was it Earth Day? Were they self-immolating like that Democrat at the Supreme Court earlier? Or still earlier this year? That was earlier this year. It's amazing how those things, when Democrats do things like mass murders and suicide attacks and self-immolation like Buddhist monks, it's just a one-day story. Shoot members of Congress. Really just a one-day story. No big deal. That's not a thing. But now we've got 5 cars rented. This happens when the White House goes in. A lot of people come along, a lot of airplanes, a lot of vehicles, but you still need some extra vehicles, so you rent them. Now, how do 5 of them set on fire? They'll probably attribute it to global warming. What do you think? Could be a global warming issue, 5 cars. Maybe Democrats came along, thought they were police cars, and torched them. Because, the Democrats do an awful lot of that, don't they? We also have, I've mentioned it, but it's becoming more severe. In the United States of America, amoxicillin, it's an antibiotic, and often used by children and prescribed by doctors for children. And it's a good pharmaceutical, and there's a big shortage under Joe Biden. And the report today is that the shortage could devastate the healthcare system in the United States. And we're way, way, way too dependent on communist China to produce our antibiotics and other pharmaceuticals. And our brilliant political leadership on Capitol Hill and in the White House over the years have all allowed this to happen. Because a lot of them are dumb, a lot of them are corrupt, a lot of them are not paying attention, and the rest have no excuse at all. But those are the excuses for the. Also, it turns out there's a Hunter Biden business partner from one of his crooked, sleazy businesses that was actually hired by the federal government, working in the Biden administration now. Hayeva, I've got to say, originally hired by the Trump administration to be a government official, and this is. That goes to vetting. Remember that word, vetting? That's kind of a crazy thing. Speaking of Democrats and crime, and who isn't? In Idaho, the headline is, Idaho police to reverse course. Don't know if residents or any occupants were specifically targeted, as they have been claiming for several weeks now. And now they're like, we don't know. We don't know. So we have this mad, one-man Manson gang mass murderer from Moscow, Idaho. Well, the murder is in Moscow, Idaho. We don't know where the murderer is from. We presume that it is a man, right? It's a man. And police are apparently looking for him. They said, hey, we got some lab results back yesterday. Really, that usually take that long? Because, the FBI went in there. They're doing a heck of a job. This is really great. Also in Pennsylvania, they got this in Philadelphia where crime, makes the war in Afghanistan look tame. They've got this George Soros radical left-wing pro-criminal prosecutor, Larry Krasner, who is being impeached, or the impeachment process is ongoing. I'm going to go ahead and guess that he won't actually be removed from office because Democrats love crime too much, and criminals. They love crime and criminals. And did you see in Philadelphia, a Democrat walked up behind a parking enforcement guy and shot him in the head at point-blank range, but just grazed his head because he's a dangerous, murderous, bloodthirsty ghoul and Democrat Party voter. And he has no skills at all, no skills, because grazed the guy, and I'm glad he's going to survive, but there's no reason to think that he should have survived this attack. It was another murderous blood. And apparently, a parking enforcement person. Well, close enough to being a police officer. So the Democrat walked up and tried to pump a round through his head. Pretty amazing stuff. Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman from Colorado. The media considers her to be very controversial. You know that they still haven't settled that election? Now, what's the date? It's December 1st. MSDNC told us this would happen, didn't they? Past Thanksgiving and all that. And they're trying to sort it out. Lauren Boebert is ahead by about 500 votes. The margin of error is very, very slender, less than 1/2 of 1 percentage point. So that triggers automatically a recount of all the votes, hundreds of thousands of them. And even though the Republican the Democrat Adam Frisch has already conceded the race, they're going to go ahead with the recount because, concession and a win is not enough. Automatic recount, so you get that. John Boehner was spotted on Capitol Hill yesterday. Did he look drunk? Did he? Or does he likes himself a little brown liquor from time to time? So we got some of that. Hakeem Jeffries, a radical left-winger, is anti-American, raised and weaned by a racist anti-Semite, his college professor uncle, who's an extremist, and Leonard Jeffries, a professor, naturally. That's where they all end up being professors, right? So they can spread the hate. And Professor Leonard Jeffries, a racist anti-Semite. It's kind of ironic that they're talking about this guy, this Mexican-American white supremacist that goes around with Kanye West to prove that he's a white supremacist. They say he's a Holocaust denier, and every Republican must respond to this. And yesterday, Kevin McCarthy was being asked about it repeatedly at the White House the other day by the fake reporters in front of the White House. But hours later, the Democrats chose this radical Hakeem Jeffries to replace Nancy Pelosi as the leader of the Democrats in the House, will be the minority leader. And this guy was raised and weaned by his radical extremist anti-Semite uncle, Leonard Jeffries, and nobody will ask anyone about it. Nobody will ask. Peter Doocy can't ask every question in Washington, but they might try. Also this week, so we got that going, and I got some updates for you on that. We got Satan, because the Democrat Party, they love Satan. And also, today and tomorrow, the annual, once a year, we here at the Chris Plante Show work to raise money for Fisher House and the Fisher House Foundation. And the wonderful, great people at Fisher House are just so spectacular, helping out our wounded veterans, active duty military, and the families, helping out the families. And we've got, today we're going to talk to people with Fisher House, the Fisher House Foundation, and related to and had experiences with Fisher House. And we're going to ask you to send in $1 million, if you have $1 million. I keep asking every year for somebody, if you got $100 million, give $1 million to Fisher House. The phone number to give to Fisher House is 888-294-8560. That's 888-294-8560. We're going to be talking to Fisher House people today. And still about all the Democrat insanity. All that's coming up. And we are at 888-630-9625.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
If you are 65 or older, you know this. Watching your hard-earned dollars fly out the window on healthcare costs is frustrating. Well, here's something that can really help, and it's worth taking a minute to look into. MediShare 65 Plus. MediShare is a community of Christians who share each other's healthcare bills, and it really is a community, too. People encourage and pray for each other. Well, MediShare 65 Plus is a low-cost option for those with Medicare Parts A and B, and it fills in the gaps where Medicare stops. It's a great way to fight inflation, too. You can lock in one low monthly price for up to 10 years. And it's easy. You can use any Medicare-approved doctor or get 24/7 telehealth access from the comfort of your home. Very worth looking into during Medicare open enrollment, which ends December 7th. If you join right now, your second month share will be free. So don't miss this chance. Call 800-PSALM-16. That's 800-PSALM-16. 800-PSALM-16.
The World Tournament of Soccer happening in Qatar is finally here. And with all the weird kickoff times and all the other sports happening simultaneously, it can be kind of hard to keep up. So to make sure you're up to speed, be sure to listen to Qatar Kick Around for the daily wrap-up of all the action from the tournament. From the group stage all the way to the final, Andy, Lars, and Peter are here for you with recaps and opinions of what happened that day in Qatar. Everything can be found at thekickaround.com, the Cumulus Podcast channel on YouTube, or wherever you listen.
We have returned, and as I mentioned, this is for 2 days a year. Try to help raise a ton of money for the great people at Fisher House. And in fact, Robert from Alexandria, Virginia, has donated $500, and he challenged $500. He challenged all of his fellow Air Force Academy graduates to equal or exceed his donation. God bless America. Call 888-294-8560 to give until it hurts. And right now on the phone, calling in, we've got Mary Considine. And Mary Considine is Chief of Staff for the Fisher House Foundation, but started as a volunteer. Hey, Mary, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you to all the WMAL listeners.
You bet your bottom dollar. And let me, what's going on with Fisher House? You know, people are thinking, well, we're out of Afghanistan. The war in Iraq is over. Fisher House, what's going on with Fisher House in 2022 and 23?
Well, it's been amazing. The population of veterans who need care just continues to grow. We have so many service members and families who have done their duty for America for the last God knows how many decades, and they're going to need care for the rest of their life. And it is so important for everybody to stand behind them to make sure that, you know, for the rest of their lives and the rest of their medical care, that they've got what they need and they don't have to worry about it.
Well, refresh people's memories on the number of Americans wounded in combat just since September 11th. And the wars.
It's been a long,
in Iraq,
long decade.
Afghanistan, yeah, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands. And the family members, Fisher House is there for the families, right?
Well, we think that the family serves too. So when somebody is deployed, the family is back home worrying and taking care of business and making sure that the burdens are off their shoulders. And when that service member becomes injured, that fight becomes the families as well. For veterans who even were in combat many generations ago, their families are still going to be taking care of them. So this is a long journey that everyone in America is on board, making sure that we know that these military families, these veterans, are cared for every single day and don't have the burden of where are they going to stay during a medical crisis for being wounded or injured or ill.
Or ill, and that's something that that also kind of gets lost in the conversation sometimes. We could be talking about a Vietnam War veteran or a Korean War veteran who is in a VA hospital or military hospital, right?
Exactly. Fisher houses serve all eras of veterans, and they serve military families as well. So if you can imagine being a military spouse dealing with a difficult pregnancy in Alaska, thousands and thousands of miles away from your family and your loved ones, and having to hop a flight just to get to the hospital. But when you get there, where you're going to stay is a Fisher House. They might not even know about it, but that's where they're going to sleep tonight, and they'll be safe and taken care of by strangers who'll become family, because that's the magic that happens inside a Fisher House. That's
right. I mean, men, women, children, family members from all eras who have served and sacrificed and given and fought and bled for this country, and the families that, as you've said, the families certainly also serve. And Fisher House is just one of the most extraordinary organizations, and I've been working with Fisher House for I think more than 15 years now, and so proud to work with Fisher House. Mary Considine, thanks so very much for being here, and join the fight, join the effort. 888-294-8560. Give $10, give $50, give $1 million if America's been that good to you.
This is the Chris Plante Show.
Yes, and we are, of course, at 888-630-9625, as we often are. And today and tomorrow, we're hoping to, kicking in a little effort to raise money for the great people at the Fisher House Foundation. And their number to donate generously is 888-294-8560. And I lose track of these things, but I think 15 years we've been doing this on our humble radio broadcast. And over the years, our listeners are very, very patriotic and generous and giving people. And so we do very well. And it really is an extraordinary organization. And the Fisher family, they bought the aircraft carrier, the U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Intrepid, and they parked it on the west side of Manhattan in New York City in the Hudson River and turned it into a museum that people visit in droves with all kinds of extraordinary airplanes on the hangar deck and on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier, including the SR-71 Blackbird, which if I were Elon Musk, I would buy an SR-71 Blackbird and restore it so that I could fly it around, because it's the coolest thing ever built by man. Maybe. Pretty close, anyway. Great stuff. And today I am wearing my long-sleeve navy blue T-shirt with my USS Tulagi. That's my father's aircraft carrier in World War II, CVE-72, with a embroidered World War II aircraft carrier on there, because I knew I was coming in for Fisher House. It's what you do. Now, we've got a lot of the usual madness from the Democrat Party, of course, and Joe Biden speaking to Native American tribes, nations yesterday, where he, as usual, made a fool of himself repeatedly, because that's his role in our society. He's the President of the United States. He's supposed to be the leader of the free world, but he's really not. And last night they had a big state dinner at the White House with, Emmanuel Macron and fromage. He's the French president, and he's staying in Blair House across the street from the White House, where left-wingers tried to assassinate Harry Truman walking in, and they shot and killed a White House police officer. Back then, left-wing political violence, more left-wing political violence. If you're going to mention Blair House, you got to mention the crazy Puerto Rican left-wing lunatics that tried to assassinate Harry Truman. And the big dinner last night, they flew in, how many, Michael? How many Maine lobsters? 200 Maine lobsters. But PETA is protesting. People eating tasty animals. They're protesting against Maine lobsters because the lobster fishermen, generations of lobster fishermen in Maine, delivering us delicious crustaceans. T.S. Eliot, I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas, that Prufrock thing. But not everybody loves lobster, truly. But most normal people love lobster. The PETA people don't, because they prefer crustaceans at the bottom of the ocean to human beings. They'll stand in front of trains to stop a shipment of lobsters from being delivered and then send a check to Planned Parenthood and fund Larry Krasner, the Soros-backed prosecutor in Philadelphia who's in charge of the skyrocketing murder rates. You know how they are, these people. And we've got lots of other crazy. I mentioned the Satan stuff yesterday, and I never actually got to it because there are too many crazy things that the Democrats give me. There was yet another mass murder by yet another Democrat. This one at a Walmart in Virginia. I guess just last week. It's a little hard to keep track. We had the what do you call him, non-binary guy who massacred people at the gay bar Club Q in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the news media immediately tried to paint it as a Republican, and Republican rhetoric did this. No, the non-binary Democrat did it again. All right. But the fake narrative is what it's all about. That's what information dominance is for. All right. But we learned that the Andre Bing is the name of the Democrat that murdered his colleagues at the Walmart in Virginia. And he left a death note, what he called a death note, where he said he was led by Satan. He was led by Satan, or the Democratic Party. And he harassed colleagues who he said gave evil, twisted grins. He said they gave evil, twisted grins, but he was led by Satan to commit this murder. He also wrote that colleagues harassed him, said Democrats say, see, he was bullied, and compared him to notorious cannibal serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. And because he resented being compared to a serial killer, he became a mass murderer. And he said that he was led by Satan, which those are not Republican Party values, I've got to say. So the IB Times had the story: Virginia Walmart mass shooter Andre Bing left a suicide note in which he whined about being, quote, mocked by his colleagues. And he said he was led by Satan to kill 6 of his coworkers for doing so. And, got this Satan thing in Chesapeake, Virginia. 31-year-old lunatic. You see, still picture of him. He looks like a crazy killer. And then he became a crazy killer. And because he looks like a crazy killer and goes around with a look on his face like he's a crazy killer, his colleagues, his coworkers made fun of him. They mocked him. So because he was led by Satan, he says in his death note, he had to kill all these people and then kill himself. So that's the Satan story. And and they compared him to Jeffrey Dahmer, and he resented that the serial killer who kidnapped and sexually abused little boys. Democrats don't necessarily kidnap. And then then he killed them, and he ate parts of them. At least he ate parts of them because he was a cannibal. And they mocked him and called him Jeffrey Dahmer, so he became a mass murderer. See how that goes? And then he said he was led by Satan in his note. Had to do that before because he killed himself. Therefore, he wasn't there to testify. Now, the non-binary mass murderer in Colorado Springs, he was captured by a big, brave U.S. Army major who tackled him and took the gun away from him and stuff. And so he's in custody. He didn't have a chance to kill himself. He did murder 5 people there, the non-binary guy. And he's not a Republican. It wasn't Republican rhetoric. That was just another media lie, another false narrative, another fraud, another fake. That's the thing about them. And maybe it reminded me when I saw the Andre Bing, Satan inspired him. It reminded me that the Democrats across the country, and the Washington Post had a story on this a couple of years ago now, basically advocating, saying, look for the after-school Satan Club coming to a school near you. The Christian Post also had a story on it. After-school Satan Club at elementary school draws parents' ire. Now, I would hope that it would, and I would think that it would. But if you're a Democrat, maybe not. Maybe so, well, after-school Satan Club, well, I've got to be open-minded about the after-school Satan Club. At the same time, of course, the Democrats fight in court to ban the Bible in school, they went all the way to the Supreme Court, trying to punish a high school football coach who would say a prayer on the field after a game, thanking God that his kids were not injured on the field. And the Democrats fought that all the way to the Supreme Court to try to ban a simple prayer on the field. But the Democrats are not fighting the after-school Satan Club at any level. At the school board meeting, certainly not all the way to the Supreme Court. But that's your Democrat Party. After-school Satan Club, ban Bible, ban prayer in school, ban crosses and crucifixes, ban prayer after a football game, and encourage the after-school Satan Club. That's your Democrat Party. That's the Democrat Party in 2022. They're not what they used to be. It's honestly, it's Rosemary's Baby. They took these things a little too seriously, I think. Don't you think? Crazy people. These crazy, crazy people. We've also got Elon Musk. Did you know that Elon Musk has 10 children? He has 10 children, not by one woman or anything. But he's a free speech guy, so he's not the apple of the Democrat Party's eye, it would be fair to say. He's their target. Free speech is something that they violently and vehemently oppose and will shout down, will try to pass laws again. We got, what's her name? We'll get to that in a bit, but Pocahontas was out there. Oh, one person shouldn't have that kind of a power or influence over information. It was fine when it was Jack Dorsey or when it's Mark Zuckerberg or, when it's the New York Post or, the New York Times or the New York Post actually reports the news that the Democrats then try to quash. They try to crush. Let's go to the telephones, Michael, because we are raising money for Fisher House today and tomorrow. Because we love Fisher House. Let's go to Tony calling from Bethesda, Maryland. Tony, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Tony.
Thank you very much for the honor of being one of the leadoff calls for the second year in a row for Fisher House.
Excellent. Excellent.
The Fisher House is very important to us at the company that I work at. It's a company called D9 Tech Resources. We're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. And I'm calling for two reasons. One, we're honored to donate $2,000 to the program this year.
Excellent.
And two, just as important, we'd like to challenge our fellow companies. Many of my colleagues listen to your program regularly, and we'd like to challenge them to do the same thing. We take great pride in supporting veterans of all types, service-disabled and otherwise, at our company. And we give preferential treatment to hiring veterans wherever it's allowable by law. And we really celebrate our veterans and are thrilled to give them an opportunity to continue to serve after they've left the service of the military. We are overwhelmed by the support that you constantly show for servicemen and women. I can't tell you how much of a smile it brings to my face when you hang up with someone and say, we're saluting you. So we at D9 Tech are saluting you, Chris Plante, and thanking you for your support for Fisher House, a fabulous, fabulous place.
It really is. It's such a great organization. The family is so great, and they've been very successful, the Fisher family in real estate in New York and beyond, and they said, well, what are we going to do to give back? What are we going to do to support the United States of America? They immediately went they decided that the military needed support. They filled a gap, right, Tony, that the VA and the healthcare system does not accommodate taking care of families when we have wounded. And it's not just combat wounded, but also people dealing with cancer, even for the children of our active duty military in the hospital. Family has no place to stay. They're stuck at some hellhole motel down the street. And Fisher House said, well, we can fill that gap. And they build Fisher houses outside of military hospitals and even on the grounds of military hospitals to accommodate in really nice places. You've probably been to at least one, huh, Tony?
Multiple. And Chris, until you visit one, it's really hard to put into perspective just how much of a service it is to the families.
Yep.
If you have someone in the hospital and you have to travel to visit them, then there's also the travel back and forth between where you're staying and where the hospital is located. It's just amazing how much thought went into the Fisher House when Mr. Fisher, Zachary Fisher, and his wife Elizabeth first envisioned this. He's been gone for almost a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
But the legacy that he's left, people say, hey, I can only imagine what you're going through. Well, when a family's at the Fisher House, they're with people who know exactly what they're going through. And emotionally, that's such tremendous support right there. I just can't say enough about it, and I really appreciate the support that you've provided. And I just want to mention another great American in addition to Zachary Fisher is our owner, Greg Gomez, who is a service-disabled veteran. used to support special operators as their communications officer, and he is celebrating his birthday today. So you picked a great day to start.
No kidding. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Tony. What a great call. I appreciate it. Thanks very much. And and it's it's December 1st. You know what happens later in December? It's Christmas time, and I've been to Fisher houses at Christmas time, and they're it's like you walk in and say, "Wow." If only any house I ever lived in looked this nice. Great stuff. Thank you, Tony. And for Fisher House donations, 888-294-8560.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
Oh, a great call from Tony there. We've also taken in Thomas and Chantilly $1,000, and Don Hoffaga's air conditioning and heating $2,000. David from Warrenton $1,000. And right now, let's go to Denise Dolan, who's vice president in charge of development for the Fisher House Foundation. Hey, Denise, how are you?
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for having me. We look forward to this every year.
Well, so do we, and such a great organization. Now, tell me, your grandfather, World War II vet in the Pacific, New Guinea, lost in the jungle there. You and your family, you're a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, so your family's been fighting wars for America for quite some time. Tell me about how you got involved with Fisher House and what's going on this year with Fisher House.
At Fisher House, we, in addition to WMAL and all the great people there and the listeners, we have been working hard to expand the road to 100, the houses to 100. We're currently at Fisher House number 93. And we have just great supporters around the country that help us and have a great passion for what we do. The thing that is happening right now, we have an incredible plan giving program where people call and leave us in their will. And then this time of year, we have the individuals who call us and they are making their required minimum distribution through their IRAs and making a charitable donation to Fisher House. So we are incredibly blessed. Dave Coker let us know this morning that when you all helped us for the first time, we had 31 Fisher Houses, and today we have 93. So we've seen this program triple with all of your support, and you've been such an important part of that period of growth for the network of Fisher Houses around the country.
Well, that's very generous. Dave Coker's a great American. He's the president of the Fisher House Foundation, and of course, a veteran himself and a great American and one of the nicest people you'll meet anywhere. Now, I was reading about you, and your grandfather was lost in the jungles of New Guinea for days in WWII?
He was. Let's just put this in perspective. He was a farm boy from Missouri. He was drafted in June of 1941, and that was 6 months before Pearl Harbor. And then he came home in December of 45. So he was there for the duration of the U.S. involvement. But he came home, Bronze Star, and didn't talk about it because he said it was too terrible to talk about. And sometime after 9/11, he decided he wanted to tell his story, but he was diagnosed with Lewy bodies dementia. So we never got to tell that or hear that story, which is really unfortunate.
Wow, that is terribly unfortunate. Wow. Well, the greatest generation, and it's so great that you grew up with him and that you got to know him and that he saw so much in life. Thank you so much, Denise.